Fantastic. Mark Stross is on the line with us. He's the author of a book that's going to be released in early March called Killer Tech and the Drive to Save Humanity. And Mark writes about his how we're going to save humanity with essentially social media. We're losing our social skills. Would you say, Tommy?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
There are none.
Right. And we're social creatures. So that's not good. What do you make of this?
I'm a business owner, and I find it more and more increasingly difficult to find people who have well-developed soft skills.
You better recognize.
Are you attacking Doc this morning?
Yeah. Well, here's what drives me crazy is these automated phone things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
And I know some of these places that there's one person sitting in there. Now, why do they have to screen that with an automated, please pay attention, our selections have changed recently?
Preserving the core of what it means to be human. Mark writes about in this book. Hey, Mark, thanks for holding on with us. How you doing this morning?
I am doing great. And this topic about social media and losing our ability to be social is actually very sad. We really have lost the ability to disagree with each other. We can't even have a disagreement over today, over over a movie star or over a celebrity, because ultimately, if that celebrity has a view that doesn't fit our worldview, then that person's a bad person. But I remember in a day in which I would look at a celebrity and go, I love that movie. I love what that person did. I didn't identify the person's actions with their politics and with their religion. I didn't package them conveniently into I don't like you or I like you based on some criteria. I allowed them to be human. I actually didn't put them on a pedestal because I allowed them to present themselves on a pedestal. And by putting them on a pedestal today, that allows us to judge people. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah, we talked about Friday, Doc, and you and I think was a pretty important conversation. A bill here in the state of Tennessee, Mark, that would require parental consent for kids to have a social media account. And there's a Tennessee lawmaker has filed a bill that would require anyone under the age of 18 to get parental or guardian consent for them to use a social media account. And also there was, Doc, 16 years of age?
16, yeah.
16. If this bill were to become law, you wouldn't be able to have a social media account unless you were 16 and older.
That's right.
I think that horse is already out of the barn, though, guys.
Yeah, they're trying to put it back in the barn. What do you say?
That would be impossible to maintain. I mean, all they'd have to do is make up something.
That's what they're doing now. You'll see like a 9-year-old.
Oh, let's legislate. Let's legislate more things.
Well, I'll tell you what. But you're right. There are going to be people who cheat, but maybe there are 1,000 or 2,000 mothers, fathers, families who say, this bill gives me additional leverage over my children, and I've tried to find some method of discouraging, and here is a method. I'm going to take their phones down. I'm going to have them reprogrammed, and I'm going to enforce that. And that would help a handful of children, maybe more. And the reason I say that is when the state is involved in soulcraft, in encouraging good citizens to be good citizens, one of the things it can do is the power of persuasion. And all of us remember the time when airliners had ashtrays, and you could smoke on an airline,
yes,
and so forth and so on. And we've moved far away from that, in large part because of societal pressure and legislation that encourages better behavior vis-a-vis cigarettes. So it's not a solution, but it might be helpful.
What do you say to that, Mark? China, TikTok is a Chinese company.
I think we as an overall American culture, we have decided that hardship needs to be somehow eliminated from life. Somehow we're going to go through life and not make it hard.
Bingo.
And so we don't want to have natural consequences for anything. So I disagree normally with government intervention, but I completely agree with government intervention in social media because it is government's right and position here to identify if something's harmful to people. And I would say social media can be harmful to people. Therefore, to tell people it is a bad idea and to put a restriction on it, like we did with alcohol and like we did with cigarettes, allows parents to have a moral compass that it gives them a definition that there is a consequence if kids use this technology. Without that moral compass right now, parents are getting into the argument, is social media bad or not? I don't know if it's bad or not, therefore I'm not going to protect my children. The truth is, it is bad for developing minds. That we have proven, that there's many studies, and Stanford has a whole bunch, where basically we now know that when you are on social media, your brain's affected. When you're on social media, you stop thinking clearly. Your social and your ability to actually speak gets affected. And so when you're on social media, when you come off of social media, there is a reset phase. There's a period in which you have to learn how to be human again. And that's part of, hence the title of my book. And we have to acknowledge that. And I just hope you guys agree with me on this one point. How often do you try to speak to a friend or someone who's deep into social media and try to have a conversation with them right afterwards? If you've not noticed, including if you're honest about yourself, it's incredibly hard to do.
Well, Mark, were you talking to me? I was, sorry about that, I was posting a photo of my breakfast sandwich on Facebook.
And his cats, Freddie and Susie, and what they were doing.
No, it's this very interesting. Now, 3 states have already passed laws that contain similar requirements. Arkansas, Utah, and Texas have passed those laws. And those are Republican states. Tennessee's a solid red. I mean, it's so red around here, you can smell red. Yep. You can smell the color red. And that's somewhat ironic here, but I think it ought to be 40 years of age. Well, you can't have social media until you're over 40.
No, I think Mr. Stross has identified a really critical issue. My grandson spends way too much time on social media, and it causes me a great deal of distress because he has other issues as well in the educational system that he's struggling with. But it's a form of a pacifier. It allows his mother to rest and keeps her from having to be on him all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of benefit there. But my granddaughter is becoming habituated to it as well, and I don't want to see that. Of course, we've talked about this many times. I grew up in the golden age where, in the summertime, you went outside and you played Army and you used magnolia seed pods as grenades, and all the fellas are nodding around that.
Oh yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Man.
And you used a garden hoe to make a road.
That's right. That's right. And you did things that require, you built forts, which requires teamwork and imagination and thinking. And I don't, watching cartoons and watching this social media stuff is not good for you. It's just not.
You'll force out a stick.
All right, but my question is, what's the punishment?
I'd say
that's a good question.
I mean, is it another rule that can't be enforced unless you're like China and you put them in prison, or you? Well, I mean, what is it?
Here's what they're proposing, Tommy. If a social media company doesn't comply with the proposed bill, they could face an investigation and legal consequences. So they go after the social media company, not the kids, not the parents.
So, let me just, may I jump in on that?
Sure.
I think we as parents have this wrong interpretation. We go, well, if a bill is created, then obviously the parent needs to in some way, they need to be spanked. The truth is, no, we've got it completely wrong. And it's amazing how Google and Apple and all the others, Microsoft, have all kind of brainwashed us into thinking they're giving us a service. When in fact, do you guys appreciate that every single time someone posts to social media, you're generating free content and media to a major corporation that is going to make money on your media, on your content, on your life force, not on theirs.
Right.
Therefore, it's up to them to enforce these laws, not for us to enforce these laws. It's for them to make sure these devices aren't addicting because they're profiting from them. That's one reason why I feel we have got in this weird moment in time where we have dehumanized ourselves so much that we put no value into our time spent on social media. In other words, we're giving that time free to social media. It's insane.
And handing them all of our information.
Yeah, one method
willingly.
Yes.
One method of enforcing this is requiring multiple identifiers: your date of birth, a credit card number, because you can't get a credit card unless you're over 18 and you have a job, and maybe something else like that, and then they could track that data and see, how the corporations are dealing with it. It would be difficult to enforce and a little bit cumbersome, and I don't recommend that you punish parents, but I do recommend that you monitor corporations.
Well, I don't know. I'd be for punishing parents as well. I mean, some of the parents I know.
So we're trying to get the government to force the parents to do what they need to do.
No, get the companies to do what they need to do.
But no, it boils down to the parents. If the parents were doing what they were supposed to do, then you wouldn't need the companies to do it. So
Tommy makes a great point. The iPhone and the iPad have become virtual babysitters.
Absolutely, they have.
Yeah, child care is expensive. It's a lot easier to set up a social media account.
To that point, I have, and Dan knows this because I think this happened on our first time we got to know each other on the first broadcast. But this is a point I always make to people, and they just don't like it. It's just, how addicted are you to these services? I'm talking now to the parent, not the kid.
Then you got that.
So when a parent hands a device over to a kid to babysit, isn't the parent themselves being babysat by the same device?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, none of us want to admit our addiction. That is why I didn't write this book, because I wanted to be famous, because I realized actually this topic is probably going to bring a lot of controversy into my life. I wrote the book because I really want to see my friends, all of us, not become zombies and changed, fundamentally have our humanity changed, that we are now actually serving the monster or this corporate entity because we are serving them content. We are serving them our life. We're giving them all of our life information. We are surrendering everything that makes us unique so that way they can put us into funnels and tell us how to live and how to conduct ourselves and what to buy. We surrender all these things, not realizing there's a consequence. And that consequence, unfortunately, everyone, is happiness. The consequence is the decay of the traditional family and the decay of husband and wife. And ironically, regardless of the amount of disputes we have, we can't even today agree on there being two sexes fundamentally in biology any longer. We would prefer to talk about the psychological and philosophical genders that we might have, but none of us want to admit that we have two biological genders. Mm-hmm. Now, my question is, would that have occurred in any other era than this one, in which there's so much information on the internet, and I can go to the internet right now and I can find any information that I want that actually speaks to my bias? And this is my final point. Think of what I just said.
That's
We're in an era where I can write a search and I can find anything that I want to back up my opinion.
Not to learn, but to validate your opinion, right?
Right, to validate your opinion, not to get the real opinion. I can find information that will validate my bias and my opinion. That's why we're in so much trouble today.
Killer Tech and the Drive to Save Humanity. The author is Mark Stross. He's on the line with us here. Mark, Tommy, do you want to respond to it?
Mark, that sounds like a great book. My only My only challenge with any of it is anytime you tell the government to take care of something, what if the government decides that they're going to, well, we won't let the Hispanics use it because, you can come up with reasons. The horse is way out of the barn. I don't know that we're ever going to get to the point that we're not going to use the internet or we're not going to use Facebook.
To back up my opinion.
Not to learn, but to validate your opinion, right?
Right, to validate your opinion, not to get the real opinion. I can find information that will validate my bias and my opinion. That's why we're in so much trouble today.
Killer Tech and the Drive to Save Humanity. The author is Mark Stross. He's on the line with us here. Mark, Tommy, do you want to respond to it?
Mark, that sounds like a great book. My only challenge with any of it is anytime you tell the government to take care of something, what if the government decides that they're going to, well, we won't let the Hispanics use it because, you can come up with reasons. The horse is way out of the barn. I don't know that we're ever going to get to the point that we're not going to use the internet or we're not going to use Facebook, but the government sure can't control it.
Plus, Mark, those funny cat videos are pretty good.
Mark Stross, we have not said this, but I want to say this. Stross is spelled S-T-R-O-S-S. If you've been looking under S-T-R-A-U-S-S, you might not find it. Mark Stross, I just want to put that in there so that people can find you a little bit more easily. Sounds like you got a lot of interesting things to say, and people should hear them.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate when I get an opportunity to talk to people like we are right now and have a discussion.
Yeah.
Is this not a unique thing to actually get on the radio? And we might actually have opposing views today on this show. Right. We might actually not agree. And you know what? I want to bring that on.
Yeah.
I want us to disagree. I want us to actually get into the arena together and compromise into facts and things that we can all agree on.
Exactly.
What's interesting is, do you remember there was an old good business adage that a good business deal is when all parties are slightly compromised and no one's got 100% of what they've got. Right?
Exactly right.
We all used to say that was the way we should do business. But today, no. We've changed the rules. Today it's win-win-win, and our side has to win at any cost.
Yep, that's right.
And if I disagree with something you say on social media, then I'm deleting you, blocking you, and solely focusing on those who have absolutely the same mindset and opinions that I do.
Yeah, and then you'll get hit with a tweet storm with a message right in hell.
Hey, Mark, you need to talk to my wife, please. Can I get your number?
Only for steak dinners.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, we can do better than a steak dinner if you can straighten her out.
Mark Stross, you mentioned that. Do you speak on college campuses?
We are starting that.
Good.
And it is, yes, we're about to start all of that. Obviously, it's all new to me, but I'm very excited to actually speak to young adults.
Yep.
I think the most challenging area in American society today, and I'm not going to say millennials and I hate using these terms where we categorize a whole generation, and you know what I mean? Because what we then do is we don't allow for outliers. So I'm a guy who loves gray. So instead, I just want to talk about our young Americans suffer from, unfortunately, extremely bad history lessons. And what they don't understand is we can be the greatest country in the world and still be a part of messy evolution. And messy evolution is my way of terming how America gets a lot of things wrong, but evolves usually into something stronger and better.
Right.
And we are very messy in the way we evolve. Look at the way we did the moon program. If America, in hindsight, look at us, we're so glorious. We got to the moon. But why did you get to the moon? You didn't get to the moon purely. You got to the moon because Russia put a satellite into space, was orbiting the Earth. America was paranoid as to what they could do with a satellite in space. Maybe they could lob nuclear, bombs at Earth. That was one of the biggest considerations during the Cold War. And from there, we have to get to the moon first to basically make sure that America was technologically supreme. But
Right.
the problem with this is the whole reason we got to the moon was because the Soviet Union kicked our ass.
That's right.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
So what people have to realize is we as a country don't have to be perfect to be the greatest country in the world.
Mark, we had a full bank of calls. Do you mind taking some phone calls?
Of course. I'd love to.
So we're going to
Thank
get
you.
right to those. But, you say that America needs a digital bill of rights now. In China, TikTok is a Chinese company. In America, the kids can watch all this crazy stuff on TikTok, but in China, if you're below 18 years of age, the only thing, I think I don't know if 18 is a number, but the only thing that you can get on TikTok is educational videos. So they're protecting their own kids because they know the destruction that it's causing American kids to watch this trash 24/7 on TikTok. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. So in China, their TikTok is called something very different, and maybe someone could help me in the audience here. I think it's Douyin. It's Douyin. It's a Chinese name meaning shaking sound. And the Chinese version of TikTok, literally, its algorithms seek out the very best in Chinese culture and highlight the very best of their civilization. And our TikTok actually seeks out the most lewd representations of our society to get the most amount of monetization out of the TikToks. So here, as we have people twerking their behinds as valid content, in China, you will have gymnasts showing you who can do the very best gymnastic stunts.
Well, I wish you hadn't gone there.
Ultimately, the algorithms in China favor exceptionalism. The algorithms in America favor lewdness.
Oh, I wish you
immorality.
hadn't gone there because Dan is blushing now, and you're going to have to take down those twerking videos.
I just learned how to twerk, though, Doc. Tell me, what do you have to say?
Well, I mean, if we really want to solve the problem, then let's stop. Let the government stop TikTok. I mean, that would be the simple solution, but too many people are getting paid. You got to follow the money.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be on the parents. It should be on. If we really want government control, then let them stop it at the internet
At the
level.
beginning, yeah. Of course, their First Amendment
Well, you see, this is
implications
very
here
interesting.
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we talk. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm
Right,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
crowd in there. But think about what you guys just talked about. Let's take down an app, TikTok. The President Trump, admittedly, because of his controversy in its own right, that created a complexity that I would say to you is unfair to put on top of the TikTok controversy, because I wonder if a different president would have had a different result of trying to ban TikTok. But right now, when we tried to ban TikTok, what came out was, well, we're doing nothing wrong. And we are not giving any information over to China, even though we are owned by a Chinese corporation. So let's just take everything at face value. The TikTok is doing nothing wrong. What's more amazing to me was that I have been writing this book now for 3 years, and I have been talking on another radio show now for 3 years about the evils of TikTok. I want you guys to tell me, how many people do you think I've influenced to stop using TikTok in 3 years?
None.
I bet you have. I bet you there's some mothers and fathers out there who've heard what you've had to say.
Well, for reference
Yeah.
sake, guys, according to searchlogistics.com, there are 73 million monthly active users of TikTok in America. So again, the source is searchlogistics.com. There are 73 million monthly active users of TikTok in America. So again, the source the source is searchlogistics.com. So that's about a quarter of all Americans that are using TikTok actively monthly. So again, these are active users, 73 million.
And it skews much younger than Facebook, for example.
Oh, absolutely. The demographics of TikTok is really teenagers all the way to young adults, and Facebook has really gone from young adults to mature adults.
Yeah,
So it's a very different
kids.
demographic.
As adults, we take things from kids. We Halloween is ours now. It's not yours, kids. It's ours.
That's right.
Facebook is ours. We've taken that from kids. TikTok is next, as soon as we learn to twerk, I guess. But Doc, or Mark, I want to get into a little bit before we start taking these phone calls about how your book, Killer Tech, is offering guardrails to help us navigate what is a uncertain new world, but also with the rise of virtual worlds. We've got some AI now. That's where I could put up a video and have Doc in it when Doc wouldn't really, in reality, wouldn't be there. It's not Doc, but it looks like Doc. It sounds like Doc.
Yes.
And it's up to Doc to prove that there really is not him.
Right.
Yeah, which was done with Taylor Swift.
Well, the Telegraph just came out with the White House voices alarm over pornographic Taylor Swift deepfakes. So deepfakes are the technology where you can take a likeness of Taylor Swift and then make it do whatever you want it to do. So you can make her do anything you want her to do. And that technology exists today. And now new videos have been coming out over Taylor Swift. And it's actually pretty disgusting.
Oh, you were serious,
Taylor
Doc?
Swift do anything they want her to do.
Yeah, this just happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
just in the news.
It just happened.
So that's what they were talking about.
Yes.
I heard
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are
what's the video?
fake videos of Taylor Swift doing pornographic acts that have surfaced that are AI generated.
Well, I'm going to have to, so I know what I'm talking about, I'm going to have to watch that.
Oh, jeez.
I am sure
You
you
guys
do.
believe that?
Well, I mean, it's show prep.
And you see, and that's the problem.
Oh, my
And that's
goodness.
the problem. That's us. All of us.
Yeah.
All of us, when I just said that, all of us jumped onto the internet to go check out
Yeah.
Taylor Swift news.
Yeah. He's
Now,
talking about you.
The truth is, that could be fun, but the truth is, doesn't it kind of show you why the deepfake exists in the first place?
Yes.
And then you want to follow the money. Every one of us who jumps and looks at the deepfake are someone's being monetized over that. It's insane.
Yeah. It's you can see how we can lose our humanity, our decency. If there's
Totally.
And these companies put a lot of money into the research on how to make it more addictive, don't they?
Well, I have a story in the book. I love this story, and my son is allowing me to talk about it. My son got heavily into computer games, and he decided that he was going to play computer games professionally for a while. And he flunked out of college for the first year, played computer games, and then he had an epiphany after he watched some of his friends get married and move on and start to have their life, that what he was doing wasn't very fulfilling. He was extremely good with computer games, but his whole world revolved around him being around his laptop and being in this world. And then he suddenly wanted more. And then he wanted what we're talking about in the book is his humanity back. And today he's in the 82nd Airborne. He's jumping out of planes with the Stinger missiles, and his life's very fulfilled. And he's back in nature. He's tearing it up. My other son's a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and he's a warrant officer. He's the oldest. And he helped the younger son get back on his feet. What I love about this story, though, is it took our humanity. It took Spencer, my son, fighting his humanity for him to fight his addictions. So when I wrote the book, what I realized is, how could I ask my son and myself to actually hold back addiction, to actually be more powerful than these companies, when these companies have an army of 1,000 programmers? Let's, for example, take Google, and 1,000 programmers work in search. And by the way, we know that now because they just let go 2,000 programmers in search because AI is going to take over the job for the 2,000 programmers that were supposed to be checking to see if search was actually good or bad, and they were making sure that the searches were good. Well, now they've turned that all over to AI. So if searches were already bad when human beings were curating them, I wonder how searches are going to get under AI, and that just occurred. So it was 2,000 people that were responsible for curating search. So can you imagine when we talk about you giving a cell phone to a 15-year-old, and you tell that 15-year-old, don't get addicted, only spend 2 hours of time on it. And then when we yell at that individual after they're on that device for 4 hours because they lost their sense of time, because they got into an addictive cycle of their own bias, they went down their bias, they got thrilled by their bias, they enjoyed their bias, and then the parent is yelling at the child because they're on the device for too long. Do you not see that ultimately it's not the child's fault? It was designed to do that. The child's only responsible for being human and actually getting addicted.
Mark, I totally, they'd put sugar on these things if they could to make them more addictive. And I ran to, in China, not China, but Japan, young men, in their 20s, when it comes to sexual activity, for example, a woman is like their third on the list. Number one is their AI sex dolls, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, in Japan especially. Replica is a company that creates virtual assistants, and people have actually fallen in love with their virtual playmate or their virtual assistant. And these relationships are amazing because the virtual assistant is designed to please the human by responses that are pleasing and to engage the human in a repetitive cycle of activities that will engage the human. So imagine the perfect girlfriend. The perfect girlfriend that is actually going to always tell you everything you want to hear. Ultimately, that is what a lot of men want, or they think they want. My question is, after you have been served and served and served, part of being human is to be told no. Part of being human is to have opposition to your ideas. Part of being human is to actually think. You can't think if you're always being told you're right.
Well, I think I could tell my girlfriend and mean it if she was always serving me and saying yes. Honey, I'd live in a trailer with you. It's all about you. You're not going to go grocery shopping for her. I mean, you need a little WD-40, I guess, sometimes, but
you ain't even got to feed them, dog.
You ain't even got to feed them, dog.
Mark, I don't think you're making a lot of progress with this radio station.
No, actually, we're being human right now.
Yeah.
Just laughing. It's the truth. This is the truth. This is why I actually don't.
It is true, yeah. Yeah, she's not going to take the garbage out, right?
Right. If we want to actually change society, we also have to admit where we're hung up. And listen, a virtual assistant wouldn't make any sense if our human desire isn't to have things that actually completely speak to our self-esteem, make us feel better. And this situation is helping make people feel good about themselves. But the truth is, it's based on their own bias. So the problem is it cuts them off from society because ultimately they're being fed their own propaganda. So when they go out in society, these people no longer can actually interrelate with each other because they've only seen their side of any issue. So that's why it's so dangerous. It's not so much, guys, it's dangerous, the fun side of what we were talking about.
Right.
It's fun to play with a virtual assistant and Replica. I found Replica to be really addicting and very fun. But when you get into the minutiae of it, it's fun because it's appealing to my bias and it's only feeding me everything I want to hear.
What was that movie?
That's extremely dangerous.
What was that movie a few years ago, Mark, that a guy lived on an island, this brilliant guy created these...
Stepford Wives?
I remember that one too.
X-Mac, I forget what the name of it was, but they created these gorgeous AI sex robots, and then one was a little too brilliant and decided that he was the enemy. And I'll recall the name of that movie at some point. Send it to you, Mark. You need to watch it if you haven't watched it. Could it be that James Cameron got it right, and we're all going to be living out the movie The Terminator at some point, unless we get a handle on this?
There's an interesting parallel here, and the parallel is in the first chapter of Genesis, where when you boil it all down, the problem with Adam and Eve is that they preferred not to follow the rules. They preferred their own sense of pleasure.
I can relate to that.
And that's what he's talking about,
right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the Adam and Eve story is the perfect human story because it's about the beginning. It's the Christian, and the historic Christian version of the beginning of life. So when you look at it, Adam and Eve basically take the bite from the apple and they change the narrative of human existence. So the truth is, if you look at it, we have always been fighting addiction, and it starts in the Bible. And what's funny is, as we fight addiction, we tend to always try to morally, and seriously, it's almost funny, we try to morally always try to self-correct and say, we're a moral species, we have ethics. Do we? Because if you look at the base nature of TikTok, which is algorithms that have been designed just to show and mimic what we want, then our society, if our society is based on the algorithm, and if TikTok is only showing us a mirror of ourselves, then what does TikTok say about our society?
I was watching, I saw a blurb. Everybody's got cameras today, but we had a cell phone, And a guy was in Burger King and got into it with a girl, with a Burger King employee that was working the cash register. And he reached across the counter and grabbed her by the shirt and jerked her into the counter. And she started wailing on him. I mean, all this was caught on tape. And I was watching it last night, and I thought, well, I mean, that's not unusual these days.
Yeah, and the first response for some people is not to try to break it up; it's to pull out their camera and videotape it,
right,
and put it on TikTok or WorldStar,
because it could go viral. Can make you a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. So no attempt to break it up. Let's get the phone out and film this.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, that is something that I have not talked about, and I did not talk about in the book, but that is actually unbelievably disgusting. I mean, how many videos have we now had to watch of someone being murdered on the street and people are taping it? Are you kidding me? If you're taping it, why aren't you trying to break it up? And we seem to have today people that, if they've taped it, they actually think that they have now a moral obligation to show it. Let's talk about that. Do you remember, just back 30 years ago, if some of you are old enough, that we used to take photographs because a photograph would cost money, so we had to be deliberate about a photograph because a photograph would have to be printed, right? So you would be mindful of the photograph you took and why you were taking it and why you were printing it. So when you finally got the photograph, it had a meaning to it. So the truth is, we had meaning to what we used to shoot and make as an heirloom, and today we seem to have no meaning because it's so disposable. We just throw it away. So we throw our likeness away. We throw our life force away. We throw us away. We give it to the corporations, and they make money on us, and we have decided, our new society, that our time, our bodies, our life is worth very little. And I'm very sad about that. And I think if we could improve our self-worth, and if we realize we are worth a lot of money to these corporations, and if we could make people not be objects, but be subjects, that would be awesome.
Compelling.
Well,
Very compelling.
The name of the book is Killer Tech and the Drive to Save Humanity. Mark Stross, his name is spelled Stross. Mark Stross is gripping exploration of our entanglement with technology in a world where digital platforms increasingly dictate our lives, and how global corporations use our online activity to shape the way that we think. And we are inundated now with messages and marketing. What is it, Mark? Do you have a number on that? Just like it's all day, every day. You can't get away from it. Let's get a phone call or two here. We got a full bank of phone calls standing by, and you'll be up first here with Mark Stross. You're on the air with Mark. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Hi there.
This is Philip Drake, independent presidential candidate.
What?
The only president on the ballot in all 50 states with an IQ higher than 75.
Yeah.
All right.
And the only
Good
one,
morning, Philip.
and the only one on there that's younger than the age of 75.
That is very true, and also very, very patient, because I've been on hold for 34 minutes and 38 seconds.
I think you got the wrong number. The complaint department. Give me what's the number for the complaint department?
1-800-BITE-ME.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry about that, Philip. Philip Drake, his website is pdrake and the number 4, pdrake4us.com. He's running for president, and he is the only independent, maybe in history, to be on the ballot in all 50 states for the presidential election. What do you make of all this, Philip?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I did complain. I did have a complaint one time, and I did call 1-800-BITE-ME, and all it was Dan's voice saying that I had to pay $9.99 a minute for some sexy talk. I didn't like that.
Yeah, but I don't know that many words, so it
was kind of repetitive.
Anyway, yeah, I'll run through them and start repeating. What do you make of this? You elected president. Are we going to have a digital Bill of Rights?
Yeah, I don't know about that. So, listen, Dan and I talked the other day about this. Well, we all talked about it. Remember Friday we had a discussion, and I was on the fence about it.
Right.
Well, one of the reasons why I'm on the fence, one of the reasons why I'm always on the fence about things is I like to read. So I like to go read the policies that they put forth. Now, I would like to say this. I looked at the legislation, and it looked like a 3-year-old that had never heard of the Constitution had written these policies. Just straight up. It was horrible.
Oh, the one here in Tennessee?
I think I looked at Tennessee, I looked at Florida, Texas, and I think Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe it was all those states, and they were all very similar, and it was just ridiculous. You know, there's no way that they actually want to actually put those through. And another thing, you know, there was a lot of loopholes in it, which tells me that what's going to happen is they're going to set aside money to execute these policies, right? And the way that normally happens is they set aside 100% of whatever it is they need. Of course, it's going to be 100%, but whatever it is they need, and with the loopholes that's in everything, 90% goes into their pockets, or not into their pockets, but back into those corporations' pockets that they're quote unquote violating their rights, and about 10% will go toward the actual legislation. So I decided, instead of having a 3-year-old write legislation for our great nation, I would talk to my 5-year-old and see what he thought about it.
Well, that's progress. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But for real, and I sent it to Dan. It took me about 3 hours. I wrote a policy, a federal nationwide policy that adheres to the Constitution 100%, violates no one's rights, might violate some corporations' rights, but they don't have rights anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I did it in a way to reinstate the fairness doctrine, which really needs to be done. And I just added a clause to that particular doctrine, which included social media, right? And instead of at 16, I dropped the age down to 13 because in a lot of these states, you guys may or may not know this, but in a lot of these states that want to say a 16-year-old, you know, they want to band it up to 16 years old. They're the same states. It says it's okay for a 13-year-old girl to marry a 70-year-old man and have sex with him. So I kind of see a little issue there.
Yeah.
You know, they're very hypocritical.
Right.
And they definitely don't know nothing about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, like at all. They skipped that part of preschool.
Well, it's Mark. Yeah, what's your initial reaction to what Philip just said?
You know, Philip is right. I actually read the Texas privacy law that got passed, and the reason this occurred is one of the first book stops we did. We went to a TechSit event because one of the people that I worked with on the book is Dr. Steve Turley, who has Turley Talks on YouTube. And so I wanted to visit with Steve that was at this convention. And I got to meet some lobbyists, Texas lobbyists, and they gave me the bill. And they said, what do you think of the bill? So I read it that weekend, and Philip probably knows what I'm about to say. And they said to me, so is it good? And I went, no, it's actually terrible. You define 5 areas in which Texas will defend people against social media. But the truth is, you see, the holes in the cheese were that anything that was not defined in the bill is still admissible. So basically, all the social companies have to do is basically work around the provisions that were in the bill, and they're completely got out. And those outs were glaring. And so the lobbyists had basically come up with a bill, as what Philip said, that would extract hundreds of millions of dollars from the Texas coffers, and they would go into creating a group of people that would administer over the internet over a very narrow set of rules that really had, that you could drive a truck through. So ultimately, it was going to be a little bit effective, but overall, a waste of money. And I don't think it's going to really do anything to stop social media. So your question then is, why did they do it?
So
well, a lot of money was made by a lot of entities.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Let me, I've got to ask you fellas about this real quick. Tommy, did you see where last week where Arizona Republican Kerry Lake taped Arizona GOP Chairman Jeff DeWitt when he was, have you heard that audio?
When they were bribing him? Trying to bribe her?
Bribe her to get out, yeah. Well, Kerry Lake she was in front of a crowd this weekend at a GOP event, and she was booed relentlessly.
Really?
Yeah. Does that surprise you, Doc?
Yes, it does. Why was she booed relentlessly?
Yeah.
Because the Arizonans hate her, man. I know a lot of Arizonans that run against her, and I know a lot of Arizonans that live there, and they hate the woman.
But she
hate her. They despise her.
But Philip, she hasn't been booed at GOP events in Arizona before that we've heard. They're coming
she's never had the turnouts that she's got now either. Well, her extra turnouts are haters. Haters are starting to show up to try to shut her up.
But it looked to me like they were defending GOP Chairman Jeff DeWitt. What do you think of this, Tommy? Did you see that where she was being booed at a GOP event?
Well, it goes back to what I've said. There's really not two parties. They're all the same.
Well, and it was pointed out by Philip that this started as the Democratic Republican Party way back when.
1796.
Yep.
And they split in two because they said, well, we're going to have to do this to accomplish our mission of dividing and conquering, and then we could force the American people to make a decision. You got to pick one side or the other. Divide and conquer. Tommy, I think you're right. There
is no two sides.
It's not. I don't think it is.
How does a politician go in broke and come back multi-millionaires? In some cases, billionaires.
There's a good question.
I mean, on Republican side and Democrat side.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, try being an independent politician.
Oh,
you go in with money, and you broke. and you broke.
You
broke,
come out
and
broke.
You broke. I got hit. Check this out. So in order for me to gain ballot access and hold ballot access, right, in all 50 states, I got hit last week with a $60,161,000 bill.
Just to stay on the ballot.
Just so y'all can vote for me.
Wow.
That's
Guess where the money? Guess who the money gets split between?
Who?
Two parties.
Democrats and Republicans.
Is that right?
Wow.
That's
It
interesting.
gets split between the two parties.
that's democracy, isn't it?
There's no two parties. They're all the same.
Well, they split it in half. I get what you're saying. It's a uniparty system. The way I like to say it. CDC, please forgive me, but the way I like to say it, separate cheeks on the same ass.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
That's what it is.
It's the FCC, not the CDC.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to figure out who the...
Oh, I said CDC, didn't I?
Yeah.
FCC,
you,
CF, whatever.
I think you're asking...
all the three-letter agencies, whatever.
Yeah, I think you're asking Dr. Fauci for forgiveness.
CDC.
It's the FCC. All right, let's go back on the phone lines. Mark Stross is with us.